Okay, so today we are covering Lesson 9, which is snowstorms and historic storms. So we're going to start with some historic storms to hit the United States. These are the strongest hurricanes according to their wind speeds. So you can do various types of what the strongest means, the category, the pressure. So I went with the strongest winds. And this is as of 2021 in October. Because that's probably going to change. Okay, so the first one is the Labor Day hurricane of 1935, which was an estimated Category 5 storm. It moved through the Florida Keys, so there it goes right there. And it stayed offshore, but still affected Florida pretty strongly. So its top wind speeds were 185 miles per hour, and it lasted from August 29th to September 10th, 1935. You can see its track here. Again, goes on the west coast of Florida and then kind of goes out to sea. And here you see a train that it derailed. Pretty serious stuff. And its lowest pressure was 892 millibars, which was the lowest recorded in the US at the time, and third lowest in the Atlantic, because we know that Katrina and Wilma from the 2005 season actually broke that record. So 423 people died, unfortunately, and over 100 million in 1935 dollars, or if I convert that to 2021 dollars, that's 2 billion spent on cleanup from the storm, which is a lot. Number 2 strongest hurricane was Hurricane Camille, which is in 1969. It affected Mississippi. That's where it made landfall. Top winds were 175 miles per hour, and it actually was only 60 miles across. So it's a pretty compact storm. Like I said, they can range in size. This one happens to be pretty small. It was, quote, born on August 5th, 1969, and it became Camille, so a tropical storm status, on the 14th of August. So it took quite a while, and it was the only Category 5 to hit the U.S. mainland at the time. Made landfall in the Mississippi coast. Like I said, there was a 24-foot storm surge. It's really, really high. Thinking at least 2 stories that were completely covered in water. And that's like the first 2 floors of a building, completely covered in water. 901 millibars was its lowest pressure. Destruction was up to 3 to 4 blocks inland. So it wasn't even just like at the coast, it was like 4 blocks inland that just wiped everything out. $10 billion in 2010 dollars. And what was interesting about this storm is that the people that it killed, these 260 people, a majority of them came from this flash flooding that happened in West Virginia and Virginia, which is not where it made landfall. It was actually the remnants of the storm that moved up northward and eastward. And yeah, so those people died from flash flooding. I only mention that because it's unusual that your fatalities don't come from where it made landfall. So anyway, this is a highway that buckled because of Camille. You can see those 1960s cars back there. Obviously, that's a coastal highway. Number 3 strongest storm was Hurricane Andrew, 1992. This one hit the coast of Florida. Top wind speeds of 165 miles per hour. And it was the most costliest natural disaster at the time, with 26.3 million in damage. It had a path of destruction that was 25 miles wide. That's huge. It destroyed the radar that was at the site where it made landfall, which we covered last class. But it was pretty fast moving. It moved 20 miles per hour. That doesn't sound like a lot, but for hurricanes, that's really strong. That's really fast considering how strong it was. 11 insurance companies went under from the claims that came from this storm, so they were no longer companies. 126,000 homes were destroyed or damaged. 353,000 people displaced, and 100,000 of those never returned to Dade County. So they were just like, nope, I'm not doing this hurricane thing anymore. So the 4th/5th is split between 5 different storms. So we have Hurricane Ida, that was 2021, that was this year. We actually had class canceled because of this storm. And that hit Louisiana, and that's what she looked like. And then Hurricane Laura in 2020 also hit Louisiana, looked like that. And Hurricane Charley in 2004 hit Florida, so there's Charley. The Freeport Hurricane of 1932 hit Texas, so there's the Freeport Hurricane. And the Florida Keys Hurricane of 1919. Obviously, these are estimated. All tied at 150 mile per hour top winds. And I got these from the USA Today. So again, you can rank hurricanes however you know, deadliest hurricane, most dollars destruction, top winds, lowest pressure, highest storm surge. Like there's all kinds of ways to do it. But I just thought I'd show you a couple of those historic storms. Now, what I found interesting is I put all these together. This was not intentional, right? But we see that these three storms here, they were all category 4s, and they look super similar, right? They almost look exactly the same. These are from different years. So anyway, interesting observation there. Okay, so now we're going to transition to our snowstorms. And snowstorms really cause a lot of disruptions, right? One flake isn't a big deal, but millions of snowflakes together, that will bring most communities to a standstill, especially depending on if the local area that is affected is used to dealing with snow, or if they are not used to dealing with snow. So this can leave an impact for days to weeks. It's not just snow, it can be high winds, bitter cold, what if there's ice involved. So we're going to go through all that. So this is kind of like what it looks like when we're cleaning up snow. Usually have a system of snow plows that go out and clear the roads. I'm not sure what happened down here, but like I find this picture and I think that's New Hampshire. I was just like, what happened? But it was super interesting, so I put the picture. And then this one's from Europe, and we see a car that's like completely buried in snow. So what is a winter storm? A winter storm can range from moderate snow over a few hours to a blizzard, which has blinding wind-driven snow that lasts several days. It might be large enough to affect several states, while others can only affect a single community. Our ingredients for these storms include moisture, right? So we know for us that moisture comes from the Gulf of Mexico. That's the source of our moisture for the nor'easters. That's what these are. They're usually nor'easters. Not always, but usually they are. We need a lifting mechanism, so usually that's going to be a front. Sometimes you'll get orographic lifting on mountains, but usually it's going to be from the front. And cold, right? It needs to be cold, below freezing temperatures at or near the ground to make snow. Small pockets of warmer air can cause freezing rain or sleet. So that's what it looks like, right? Those people were stranded. So real quick, let's talk about Wintery mix. So what is it? In the Maryland, DC area, we live in prime real estate for Wintery mix. Now, I feel like Wintery mix is a nasty jargon term that basically encompasses everything from snow to sleet to freezing rain. It's just like something will happen. So we'll just call it Wintery mix, some kind of frozen something. So a change in precipitation type will happen when the temperatures close to the surface aren't cold enough to make snow. And yeah, it can get really messy. So here I thought this was a good example of that Wintery mix. You see kind of snow on the sidewalk, then some slushy ice and maybe sleet in there somewhere. Maybe this is the sleet. Can't really tell, but Wintery mix. And we see this is why Maryland experiences this type of weather so often. We have the Chesapeake Bay, which is right here. So that's what it looks like. It's kind of like a finger that goes through the middle of Maryland. So that's Chesapeake Bay. And in January, the land temperature surrounding the bay is 20 to 40, 20 at night, 40 during the day, and the Chesapeake Bay stays around the low 40s. So it's relatively warmer, okay? That's important. And then we also have the Appalachian Mountains out here to the west of us, and these can be helpful because they trap the cold air. which we call cold air damming in meteorology, or it can keep the cold air out because it has to go up over the mountains. So these kind of winter storms will impact transportation, aviation, crops, people, animals, schools, businesses, everything basically. So between the two of these things, we see a lot of moisture coming from the Chesapeake Bay, plus the Atlantic Ocean is right here. But we get more moisture, maybe a little bit more warmth coming from that surface that's warmer. And then if I have cold air kind of trapped in this area by the mountains, we'll get a big mixture of something, which we call the wintry mix. So voila, mystery solved. Okay, so I wanted to go through the different types of snow. Yes, there are different types of snow. So these are intensity levels. So we have flurries. This is the light snow falling for short durations. No accumulation or light dusting is expected. Then there's snow showers. That's kind of down here. You see snow showers. This is snow falling at varying intensities for brief periods of time. Some accumulation is possible. And then we have snow squalls. These are brief, intense snow showers accompanied by strong gusty winds. And accumulation can be significant with these. The most famous snow squalls are the lake effect snow in the Great Lakes. So if we were in class, we would watch these videos. This is snow flurries, and then this is a really big lake effect system that happened a couple of years back. Okay, the next up we have is blowing snow. So this is wind-driven snow that reduces visibility and causes significant drifting. Blowing snow can be snow that's falling or loose snow on the ground that's picked up by the wind. So again, if we were in class, we would see this video, which is Condition 1 weather in Antarctica. I highly encourage you to watch it. It's like really intense. And then this is a prairie blizzard. And in this case, you can see from the thumbnail, there's a very strong drift here against this man's barn. And he estimates it to be about 30 feet high, which I thought was super impressive. Then we have blizzards. These are characterized by low temperatures, winds greater than 35 miles per hour, snow heavy enough to restrict visibility to less than a quarter mile. And it becomes a ground blizzard if the blowing snow continues, but the snow has stopped falling. So now we're just blowing around the snow that's on the ground. And I like to put this picture in here. This is in Japan, and they have literal snow canyons. So this happens on the side of a mountain. You get lots and lots of snow. They carve out the roadway there, and then they take tour buses through so people can take pictures. One day I'd definitely like to visit this because that is a crazy amount of snow. And back to our culprits for the wintry mix. Those would be sleet and freezing rain. So just to review, because we did cover this in the precipitation chapter, sleet is when we have rain droplets that freeze into ice pellets before reaching the surface. Sleet usually bounces. You'll hear like this tink, tink, tink sound. That is sleet. And it can accumulate just like snow. And it causes quite a mess, makes roads very slippery, and it makes it hard to walk too, let me tell you. Freezing rain is a little different. This is rain that freezes instantly when it touches something. So it's falling and then it touches the surface and then it freezes instantly. So it looks like a coating or a glaze of ice. Even a small amount of this can be very dangerous. Large buildup of ice can down trees, power lines like this storm here, and coat roads. So in class we watch these two, which is cars sliding down hills because of freezing rain. So it's not funny, but it is kind of funny to watch. Don't do that. Stay home. Don't be the sliding car, okay? All right, a little side note here about winter storm names. So I have a problem with these. They is the Weather Channel. So the Weather Channel started in 2012 to 2013, that winter season, to name winter storms. And I feel like this is more confusing than helpful because let's say Snowstorm Luna forms in like the Midwest somewhere. It goes over Chicago, and then it loses some strength. Then it redevelops over the Appalachians, and then it hits DC. Is it still Luna? Is it now Magnus because it's redeveloped? It's just so confusing because these kind of storms can like dissipate. They can jump from one place to another. We call that like a secondary low. So they're a lot more confusing and complicated than hurricanes are. Hurricanes are like it forms, it hits something, that's it, right? This one can like redevelop and move somewhere else. So that's why I'm like, why are we naming these? It can be confusing. It's also not official, right? It's not the National Weather Service that's doing this. It's the this private company, the Weather Channel. So just a little soapbox. I don't like it. Okay, I'm done. Moving on. So some unusual systems that happen in the United States. We had in 1895 an unusual low pressure that moved northward through the Gulf of Mexico, and when combined with a cold high pressure from the Central Plains, snowfall came to some pretty unlikely places. So like New Orleans got 8 inches of snow. Galveston, Texas, which we talked about last class, 15 inches. That's almost a foot and a half. And Houston got 20 inches, and Pensacola, Florida got 3 inches. These areas don't usually get this much snow, so it's kind of like, what? And then January 1977, some of my audience might remember this, but the snowfall went as far south as Miami. But I feel like the thing that took the cake in this storm was the cold. So the Ohio River actually froze over for the first time since 1918, and many, many, many record lows and highs were broken. So we're talking like the high temperature was the lowest it's ever been, and the low temperature was the lowest it's ever been. I think I did that right. And just so you're getting some context here, this is the Potomac River, which goes by DC, and these are people ice skating on it. So that's how cold it was in January 1977. Okay, now we transition to some large city snowfalls of the past. And we start with Chicago. This was in 1967 in January. They got 19.8 inches in 24 hours. That's quite a big dumping of snow. And here's the picture from that storm. So we see cars kind of just stranded in giant piles of snow. And then in January 1999, it kind of repeated, maybe a little bit. And you see up here, same situation, right? But now we have better snow plows, I guess. So it looks like it was cleared a lot better in this situation. And that one, they got 21.6 inches. Then New York City in Christmas 1947, 2 to 3 inches per hour, and 10,000 cars were abandoned. So this is a picture of New York right there. You can see why. It's just like piles of snow. And Central Park picked up 26.4 inches. Then in Boston, February 6th to 8th, 1978, we see, this is the Boston storm right there, record-breaking 27.5 inches. I like this because it looks like it's a river of snow, right? But it's actually a highway. So people are like stranded in their cars. This car is like almost completely buried. That's pretty crazy. Also had high winds, extreme tides, which led to flooding. And of course, we have the storm of the century. Storm of the century. Okay, pretty sure the media named this. I don't know. Biggest of the 20th century? Maybe. So this was March 1993. Okay. And even Birmingham, Alabama got 12 inches of snow. So that's down here in Alabama. And snow was from Mississippi to the Florida Panhandle, so kind of across, and then northward up to Maine. So you see here the infographic I borrowed from AccuWeather. This is kind of the range of snow totals. So even DC got like 10 to 20 inches. And on the following day after the storms, Saturday the 13th, every airport was closed in these eastern states that were affected. Mount Mitchell, North Carolina, which is a higher point in North Carolina, got 4 feet of snow. That's a lot. And 3 inches was the minimum in Atlanta, Georgia. Again, not someplace you would expect to be getting snow. Chattanooga, Tennessee got 21 inches. And at the peak, this storm covered 30% of the entire country. So it's like a really big storm. Record low barometer readings all along the East Coast. There's 27 tornadoes in Florida. Winds were up to 99 miles per hour on an oil platform off the coast of Louisiana down here. And 285 people died, unfortunately, including many in those tornadoes. And this was Florida's costliest non-tropical storm at the time, which is kind of interesting because they usually get a lot of their damage and all that, emergency fund money for their tropical storms. And this was not a tropical storm. And that's interesting. And then everybody else also declared states of emergency through the eastern U.S. So, I submit to you that is not the greatest blizzard in U.S. history. I think this one was the greatest blizzard of U.S. history. This is 1888. I know we're going way back, 130 years ago. So there's actually 2 separate storms in the same year. So the first one was in January, and it moved through the plains, from up in Montana down to Texas, and then eastward over the Great Lakes. So kind of like whoosh, like that Nike check storm. And it was 53 below zero. So it's a little cold, right? Just a little bit. And we'll talk more about this later, but actually 200 people died, including children coming home from school who got lost in whiteout conditions. That's pretty severe, right? And so that first storm, here's a picture of a train just completely stranded because of the snow. And then later, the second storm in March was from DC to New England. It's kind of more traditional track of a nor'easter. It had a secondary center, like I mentioned before, which then re-energized the storm, through something called bombogenesis. It's not a made-up word. It's a real word, and it's basically an explosive development of cyclogenesis that is 24 millibars or more in 24 hours. So snow depths were up to 50 inches from DC to New England. That's a lot. That's like, if it was on the professor, it'd be like up to here. So if I was standing, that's quite a bit of snow. And you see this guy, he is standing, and I'm assuming that's a drift. I hope it's a drift. But that's a lot of snow. We got a little tunnel going through it. So, okay. So again, that second storm, it pretty much paralyzed New England. So this is a estimated number of snowfall for just New England. And we see some high bullseye amounts. That's what we call them, bullseye amounts here in the 50s. So there's 55 there. And I think that one says 45, but I can't quite tell. Anyway, big numbers, over 4 feet. Communications down, transportation is paralyzed, and they're basically cut off from the rest of the world for a whole week. And they had 20 to 40 foot snow drifts. And Washington, D.C., which is here, so I'll do little dots here. So Washington, D.C., New York, Hartford, Connecticut, Albany, New York, which is over here, and then Boston. So all of those cities were completely shut down. Winds reached hurricane intensity, so this was dubbed the Great White Hurricane. Right? So hurricane intensity, snow. Is it a snowcane? Maybe. And 200 people died in New York City alone. And that could be just from the cold, right? Okay, so here we have, again, as of October 2021, I forgot what year it was. We have the top snowstorms in DC. So this is at Reagan National Airport, I believe. So we see the first one. I'm going to go through the top 5. So this is the Knickerbocker Storm, 28 inches. Then 1899, 20.5 inches. 1979, 18.7. These two are tied. So again, we'll go through those. But I just wanted to mention some of the other ones. The blizzard of 1996, super famous. Let's see. Here is Snowmageddon 1, right there, the 19th of December, 2009. Snowmageddon 2 we're going to cover, and then Snowmageddon 3 is this one, which they also called Snowverkill, which I thought was funny, 10 inches, because it was back-to-back. It was like we had this first storm, and then we had another storm like a couple of days later. Okay, so the first one is the Knickerbocker Storm, January 1922. So here's Knickerbocker Theater. This is Adams Morgan, if you're familiar with DC. It looks a lot different now, I know. This used to be a SunTrust bank, but I think it's something else now. Anyway, so this is a rescue effort at the Knickerbocker Theater because the roof collapsed under the amount of snow, and that was really bad. It killed 98 people and injured 133. So it snowed for 2 days straight. It totaled about 28 inches, and the record still stands for that. So that is the top snowstorm for DC. Number 2 is February 1899. So here we have a kid posing with a drift. And please note, they didn't have snowplows back then. So this isn't a snowplow drift, because I know we get those all the time. We're like, bah, whatever, that's not a real snow drift. This is a real snow drift, and that's a real kid, right? So record low temperatures of -15 Fahrenheit. It's really cold. And heavy snow and winds, gusts up to 48 miles per hour, whatever. Temperatures in the single digits, that's what it felt like. And then snow cover record was set at 34.2 inches. And just so you're aware, that means cover of snow on the ground already. So they already had some snow. Then this blizzard added 20.5 inches to that. So their total was 34.2. And again, snow drifts as high as 10 feet. Okay, next up we have number 3 storm, which is in 1979. This is the President's Day snowstorm. And here's some cars buried on Floral Street in Washington. This was a Cape Hatteras low, so it formed off the coast of North Carolina and then came northward. This was the afternoon of February 18th. It was the biggest snowfall since the Knickerbocker storm, because chronologically speaking, the second storm is before both of these, right? So 18.7 inches in DC. It was a very poorly forecasted snowstorm. I give it the worst forecast award for snowstorms. So coincidentally, farmers were in town to protest and lobby the government. So they ended up cleaning up the snowstorm with their tractors, which I thought was convenient. Interesting, right? So, tied for 4th/5th place is Snowzilla. Okay, this is January 2016. This is what your practice project is on. So we see that Reagan National Airport received 17.8 inches, which tied the record from February 2010, which is the next one we'll talk about. Now, the official snow total is in question because the airport snowboard, which is used for measuring snow, was lost under the deep snow. We don't know how much we got. Just say 17, it's fine. So the storm quickly melted afterwards, which made it the least impacting storm with high totals. That's kind of interesting, right? Because usually we'll get a bunch of snow and then like you're completely buried and digging out for days. This one just melted. So it did take a while though. I say that this one won the best forecasted award, in my humble opinion, because it was forecasted to have a major impacting snowstorm over a week in advance. Now, I have to say the professor didn't believe them, even though I'm one of the field, right? I was just like, really? You're going to forecast 10, I think it was 10 or 12 days out that we're going to get a big snowstorm. It was like, this is not going to end well. They're never going to believe us after this. And then it ended up happening. So that was pretty exciting, actually. And the governors of 11 states and the mayor of DC declared a state of emergency before the storms. This is one of the first times that's happened. I think it might be the first time. Usually you wait to see, okay, what happened? Like, then we declare a state of emergency. This one did before. So again, all kinds of records being set. So there's a guy next to his truck. Okay, so 7 states observed snowfall in excess of 30 inches. And I have 2 time lapses here that you can watch at your leisure. And accumulations peaked at 42 inches in Glengarry, West Virginia. So obviously mountains, they're going to get more snow. So ice and snow-covered roads led to hundreds of incidents across the region, several of which ended in deaths and injuries, unfortunately, and 55 people were killed in storm-related incidents. That's kind of a lot, considering it's 2016. And the total economic losses were estimated between $500 million and $3 billion. That's a lot of money. Okay, so personally, it took me, I was staying at my uncle's house in Bowie, so I'm in PG County at the time, and it took me all day to dig out my car. So my car is back here, okay, and it was hard work. I took lots of breaks, but I refused to go and hire the so-called help because they wanted me to pay $100. I was like, I don't want to pay $100 if I can do it myself, right? Which is a big mistake because I was sore for days after this. But anyway, so check out my slides here. So I felt like I got good clearage here all the way down to the concrete. Very nice, right? And then I got the first car free. Again, mine's back here. There's the help, okay. Then I moved that car, and then I'm trying to get back to mine. So then we changed angles here. I got my car free, so then I move it over here, and I'm trying to get out. So I still have quite a bit to go. This is not a big driveway, guys. It's really not, but I'm trying to escape. So then, by the time the sun goes down, I finally made a Fiesta size. It's a Ford Fiesta. A Fiesta-sized hole. I literally did like this. Like, how wide is my car? Okay. And then I like went over and I found out how wide it was. And that's what I ended up tunneling, which was sad because, like I said, it ended up melting like not even a couple days later. I think like 48 hours later it was all melted. And I was upset because I did all this work. But anyways, it makes for good pictures, right? Okay, so this is the last one that's tied. It's dubbed Snowmageddon, right? This is February 2010. And there's lots of tropical moisture associated with this Gulf low. So coming from the Gulf of Mexico up the coast of the United States, it encountered cold air from a high pressure in Greenland. So we get totals of 20 to 24 inches. 2 feet of snow, not a big deal. And then, like I said, snowverkill hit 4 days later. So like the professor dug out. Okay, first of all, I had to open my garage door to get outside because all my doors were blocked. With so much snow, I couldn't open them. So the best way to escape is through your garage. So I open the garage door, I go out, I shovel the front door, and then 4 days later, it's back being stuck closed again. I was so upset. I'm like, I did all this work and now I'm stuck again. It was awful. And my roommates weren't there to help me, so I had to do it by myself. Anyway, I'm fine. So 6 to 15 inches across the region with that second storm, and it made the 2010 winter season the highest on record. So the winter season, highest on record for DC. And this is a time lapse, you can watch that. And then this is kind of what it looks like. Lots of snow. Okay, so now we're going to go through some hazards of those winter storms and blizzards that we've been talking about. So the first natural hazard is black ice. So black ice occurs after melting and refreezing occurs overnight. So it might melt during the day, it refreezes overnight, and then we get this stuff called black ice. So it looks like this, right? Now you can see it because there's a glare, but if you're not paying attention and it's dark, that's why it's called black ice, like you can't see it. So it causes a good deal of danger to unsuspecting drivers who aren't paying attention. Bridges, ramps, and overpasses tend to freeze more quickly. That's why it has that little sign that says, bridges freeze before roadways. Like, it's true because it's exposed underneath, so it's air instead of ground, so it keeps it colder. So lack of treated roads, depending on the timing of the storm. Make sure the tread on your tires is good. And weighting factors in your vehicle. So play it safe, stay home, don't travel unless you have to until the roads are properly cleared. So funny story from the professor. It's not funny because it cost me a lot of money. But anyway, maybe I shouldn't tell this story because then, anyway. So I'm in my Fiesta, right? Rest in pieces. And this wasn't what killed it. But I'm moving to my uncle's house, which you just saw. And before what is that storm? Snowzilla. Before Snowzilla, I'm moving, and right before that storm, there was this little 1-inch storm. I'm telling you, it was 1 inch, okay? But it happened, during rush hour traffic. Now, I had left early because I was moving. I overloaded my vehicle, which you should never, never do. And I'm driving, and it's still snowing, right? It's still icing whatever it was doing. It was kind of mixed because it's Maryland. And I come around a corner, didn't see the black ice. Okay, so I'm just telling you, I didn't see the black ice. I saw the car coming towards me. I was like, okay, I can make it. I gun it, go around the corner, hit the black ice. I slide right into the curb. And I was just like, oh no. So I bent my wheel arm. Yeah, apparently that's hard to do. But I did it, and it made for a very exciting drive because then your wheel is kind of jerking all over the place randomly. Yeah, so don't do what the professor did. Leave extra space, leave extra time, and don't move during a snowstorm. I should have waited until the next day. There's absolutely no rush. Anyway, moving on. So, other things the professor has done. I have parallel parked on 1/4 inch of ice. I'm actually really proud of this. I didn't hit anything. So, how did I do that? Well, tip number 1, do everything slowly. Okay, so you use your idle speed if you're parking. So if you're parking, use your idle speed to do all the work. Don't use your gas pedal. Number 2, avoid abrupt changes. If you yank the wheel, that's when you start spinning, right? 3, gentle on the brakes. Again, tapping instead of slamming, because if you slam, your wheels can lock up and then you have absolutely no control. And stay calm. Overreacting causes so many accidents. So those are the professor's tips. These are from AAA, which is probably more reliable anyway. So increase your following distance. Not the time to be tailgating. Not that you should tailgate at all, but definitely don't do it when it's winter driving. Going up and down hills, you want to make sure you see how the other cars are reacting. I was in a situation once where they were all stopping on the hill. I'm like, oh my gosh, don't do that. Like, if you stop, you're going to get stuck. So I had to go around them creatively. I'm just saying, because I know if I slam on the brakes, I'm going to get stuck in the snow. It was 6 inches. It wasn't a big deal. Steer and brake, you want to make sure you use careful, smooth movements, very precise. Don't use jerky motions. Drive in the lane. Make sure you use the one that's plowed, okay? Don't try and plow your own lane. Yeah. And don't use cruise control. I learned that the hard way. I'm not telling that story. And take extra care when you're on bridges, overpasses, and spaces that are prone to freezing. Okay? Now, let's talk whiteouts. So natural hazards, whiteouts. This is something where you can completely lose your sense of direction. So that's why it's called a whiteout. So it's best for you to stay put. The blizzard that we talked about earlier, the January 1888 storm, it occurred during normal work and school hours. And it was actually quite nice early in the day, which is really confusing. It's almost 60 degrees. And then, voila, crazy blizzard comes through. So school was dismissed, and many school-aged children were stranded in this blizzard, unfortunately, and 235 people died. One teacher attempted to cross a yard. That's what this drawing is of. This is an artist rendition. And it was only a building 82 yards away, or 250 feet. She and the children became lost, and the 3 children ended up dying. So whiteouts are serious. And this video shows you what a whiteout looks like. And you just literally, if it gets really bad, you can't see your hand in front of your face. Really, really bad. So take shelter. All right, number 3 is hypothermia, natural hazard. Blizzards are also known to have bitterly cold temperatures. In the February 1899 storm, that second snowfall, that's the largest on record in DC, demonstrated this very well. It set record coldest day for DC at negative 15 degrees, and some unofficial reports came in at negative 25 degrees. That's really cold. So here's some warning signs of hypothermia. We see confusion, shivering, or when you stop shivering, that's even worse. Difficulty speaking, sleepiness, stiff muscles. So you want to get inside, warm yourself slowly. That way you don't burn yourself. Definitely don't just jump into a hot bath. Stages of frostbite, something else you can get in the cold. So this is what your normal hand looks like. Then you can get something called frost nip. Then there's superficial frostbite, which got blisters and nasty things. And then deep frostbite is when your extremities turn black. And that's when you might be looking at amputation. So don't do that. Wear gloves, or again, stay inside when it's this cold. All right, a little bit more about hypothermia. So the risk in bitter cold and hypothermia is because there's a significant, potentially dangerous drop in your body temperature due to a prolonged exposure to cold. So this is a risk as well as that frostbite we just looked at, which is a condition in which your skin and your tissue beneath your skin freeze. So you can freeze, you're made of mostly water. So because you're made of water, water freezes, so wear layers, keep yourself warm, or stay indoors. So this is no wind. You see your temperature is fine, right? You're wearing layers, you're good. But when it's windy, the heat is being moved away from your body, so you feel colder and your temperature of your core can drop pretty drastically. So up to 4 degrees. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it is dangerous, and you should definitely call 911 if you are in this situation. Okay, creatures. That's right, creatures. So in the winter temperatures, other creatures will seek shelter inside your house, like mice, and especially mice, rats, roaches, other bugs, ants do it too, and maybe even raccoons. So I have this little video of the Mayhem commercial. I don't know if you're familiar with Allstate. They're not a sponsor, but I like these commercials. I don't know why they stopped making them. But he's pretending to be a raccoon in your attic. So just something to consider. Make sure that all the holes in your house are plugged up, right? Okay, man-made disasters. Here we go. So down trees and power lines. Ice is a really nasty business. It can coat both trees and power lines, and it can make them snap under the unusually heavy load. So they're used to carrying like X amount, and then it's going to be X amount plus ice. So then it's going to knock over. So falling trees can definitely cause damage to properties, especially if I've heard so many lawsuits like, I told my neighbor to chop down that tree or branch, and he didn't do it, and now it landed on my car, and then they end up going to court. So make sure you take care of your trees. That's all I'm going to say about that. So this is the shaky shaky video, super funny. Again, Allstate, not a sponsor, but he has a tree branch that falls on a car. Spoilers. Okay, next man-made hazard is snow bombs. Yes, this is a thing. So after snowfall, it is imperative that you properly clear all the snow off your vehicle, especially the roof. People don't do this. It really drives me crazy. But you see this guy, right? Oh, I'm good to go. What? So this thing can dislodge. It can strike the vehicles behind you. It can cause a crash, injury, or worse. I found one article where someone had more solid ice kind of on the roof, flew off, and actually struck the car behind them. We'll just say it ended badly. So during a snowstorm, if you have to be out, again, you shouldn't be out and about, but if you are, make sure you reduce your speed. Don't stop, right? Like I said, once you stop, you get stuck. So you want to slow to a reasonable point, but just kind of keep going. That way you don't get stuck. So stop signs become yield signs a little bit. This is not during normal traffic, okay? This is only during a snowstorm. If you have to be out. So again, you should be staying home. Okay. So roof failure. So remember the Knickerbocker Theater? That one had roof failure. Bad roof collapse can destroy a house. Your roof is the most important part of your house, right? It keeps the bad stuff out. So it says 10 inches of fresh snow equates to about 5 pounds per square foot, which means your roof is likely to support 4 feet of snow, but packed snow weighs even more. So 2 feet or more of snow is enough to exceed that weight limit, and then your roof collapses. So old and new snow combined can easily exceed that load capacity. An inch of ice is equal to 1 foot of fresh snow. So that's another factor right there. So it's no wonder our power lines end up snapping. This was the most infamous roof collapse, I believe, in recent memory, the Metrodome, which collapsed under a really bad snowstorm. So, oops. Now, the whole point of having the roof on the stadium is so that, they don't have to clear out the snow. But I'm thinking some engineer got fired because of that. So you can watch that one. Also, according to Adjusters International, ice dams can cause issues with your roof. Ice dams are when this happens, right? So we got ice in the gutter and it prevents my melting snow and water from draining off the roof. And it trickles back inside your house into your property instead of out down the gutter, right? Which is right here. Sorry, I'm gesturing to the screen. Another structural hazard is your siding. So this one's made out of bricks, but your siding can take a pretty heavy hit during all these winter storms. So snowfall, sleet, hail, heavy winds can definitely cause you to need to replace significant damage to your siding. Okay, generators and fires. So generator safety. A lot of people will resort to using a generator when you have no power, right? Your power goes out, so I need my generator. That's fine, but you need to make sure you use it safely. Don't put it in your garage. No, that's not where it belongs. It goes at least 20 feet from your house, and the exhaust should be away from your house. That way, no carbon monoxide poisoning, okay? Again, not in your garage. They're outside your house. Follow the proper directions. Otherwise, it can lead to a fire. Speaking of fires, along these lines, some people will use fireplaces for the first time during a blizzard or winter storm. That doesn't sound dangerous, right? Sounds nice and warm and cozy. But if you haven't kept your chimney properly cared for, then it can start a fire. Sorry. So there's like particles that build up on the inside of your chimney. They can light on fire and that can burn down your house. So it recommends that you have your chimney cleaned annually by a CSIA certified chimney sweep. Okay. So if you hear any kind of loud crackling or popping sounds, notice that there's really dense smoke coming out, call 911 because your house could be on fire. So make sure you have that annual cleaning of your chimney. Even if you don't use it, just make sure you're cleaning, right? Also, carbon monoxide poisoning is no joke. So having a CO2 monitor, at least in the places where you sleep, would be a good idea. They're like $10 at Home Depot, not a sponsor. Also, Christmas trees. Sorry guys, real trees as opposed to artificial trees, they can dry out pretty quickly and catch fire. So they actually cause the majority of the fires during the winter season. So you want to make sure it stays watered, so no fire, okay? And make sure you maintain proper use of your furnace, fireplaces, space heaters. Space heaters need 3 feet of space on all sides. Extension cords, don't use them if they're frayed. Holiday decorations, all those things. So be safe. All right, the top insurance claims for the U.S. in the winter is wind damage. We kind of covered that, right? Tree collapse is third costliest winter weather climate, I guess. Claim. Sorry, that's spelled wrong. Averaging about $6,000 a tree. That's a lot. Hail, if you're in a hail-prone area. Frozen pipes, that can be up to $10,000. Yikes, the water gets inside, it freezes, expands, pipe bursts. Your house is full of water. No good. Snow and ice damage, this is around $4,700, including that roof collapse we covered. Slips and falls, these should be obvious, but if you walk on those icy driveways or walkways, it can cause slips and falls. And if you don't clear your sidewalk, you might be liable for it. So check your local township to see if that's the case. Ice on the road, we already covered. And then finally fire. So you can lose your entire house to that. All right. So you want to know the terminology when it comes to these. So if I say frost or freeze warning, that means below freezing temperatures are expected and may cause significant damage to plants, crops, fruits, and fruit trees. And in areas unaccustomed to freezing, people who have homes that without heat need to take added precautions, i.e. Florida. And then winter weather advisory is the least severe, and this is when we have winter weather conditions expected to cause a slight inconvenience up to hazardous level but if you take caution, it shouldn't be life-threatening. So again, if you have a freeze warning or a frost advisory, you want to make sure you add a blanket and a cat. It'll be cold, dress in layers, and make sure you're wearing proper coat. All right, when we get to winter storm watch, this is severe winter conditions such as heavy snow and ice, possible for the next 12 to 36 hours. Sorry, prepare now. Once we get to winter storm warning, this is even more severe. So now we're expecting it in the next 12 to 24. Notice the time frame shrinks and the amount of impact increases. So we have 4 to 6 inches now, or up to a 1/4 inch of ice. Seek shelter immediately, it says. Then once we get to blizzard warning, this is the most severe. This is snow and strong gusts up to 35 miles per hour or greater. Combining with that blinding snow, less visibility, we get those deep drifts we talked about, life-threatening situation, wind chill, all of that for the next 3 hours. So again, least severe is winter weather advisory, then we have winter storm watch and warning, and then blizzard warning is the most severe. I like the way it says, like, be aware and prepare, takes action, and then blizzard warning is do not travel. It's like, it's already too late. All right, so when it says prepare, this is what it asks you to do. I'll just go through the picture. So have an emergency kit in your home. So you need paper maps, a hand can opener in case power goes out, battery operated radio. Flashlight and batteries are better than candles. Again, candles, if you forget about it, can cause a fire. First aid kit, a whistle so people can find you in case you need help. Dust mask in case your roof collapses, right? Solar charger for your phone. Food, that would be canned, so you'd use the can opener to eat the food. Water, 1 gallon per person per day, and pets, and then toilet items. You should have an emergency plan in case this happens. So that's for your work, your daycare, or your school, and you want to make that plan, practice the plan, have a kit, and be informed. Learn the area of emergency shelters for your area. I like this one, have an out-of-state relative check on you, right? So if they're out of state, most likely they're not being affected by the storm, so they can find out, is everybody okay? And if not, perhaps send help. Make sure you prepare your car for winter. Have your car serviced. Go to your mechanic and say, hey, I'd like to have a winter servicing for my vehicle. They should be able to do that for you. And you should have an emergency supply kit for your car. So you should have a cell phone charger. Most people already have that. First aid kit, even if it's basic, make sure you have something. Jumper cables. You can get these little guys like this. I have one. I think it was like $40. So little thing, you just put it next to the battery, put the little things, and you're good to go. Spare tire. Some cars do not come with a spare tire anymore. Surprise. Check your vehicle. Mine does not come with a spare tire. I'm still working on that. Flares. Make sure you get a full tank of gas so that you don't get ice buildup in your gas tank. Sand or kitty litter to get you some traction in case you get stuck. A tow rope, blankets or a sleeping bag in case you get stranded. A snow shovel and brush. Again, a flashlight so you can see. Water and snacks, and then extra clothing because it can get cold. So here's your vocabulary. This is a winter storm game on that ready.gov disaster master. That's the password to get in, just to show you like how you should prepare for these storms. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson on snowstorms and historic storms, and I'll see you next time. Bye.